I've also threatened, just cut the tax. Just cut the tourism tax.
Alrighty, I'd like to call the Common Council meeting to order. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Michelle, if you could help me with the roll call, please.
Doug Saloga.
Present.
Jim Barron.
Here.
Jackie Valdi.
Here.
Wayne Dean.
Here.
Matt Grimmer.
Here.
Kevin Maples.
Here.
Tim Eicher.
Here.
Kent Atwell.
Present.
Tom Hafner.
Here.
Thank you.
Great. Item number 1, City of Delafield citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that would like to come up to the mic and make comments? Come on up.
I first of all want to say thank you.
Name and
to all of
address,
you.
Carol. Name and address. No, a name and address, please.
Oh, sorry. Carol Beek, 1632 West Shore Drive, Delafield, Wisconsin. And I want to say thank you for all of you for the opportunity to speak. It came to my attention only when my husband came to the house a few weeks ago and said he was talking to two guys who were measuring the ditch. He asked them what they were doing, and they said, measuring for a culvert pipe. My question is being that we are taxpayers, we live right on the lake and right next to the ditch. Why were we not contacted before this point in time? On March 7th and 8th of this year, the city came and dredged the ditch. The city workers on private land and our tax dollars. I asked one of the workers at the time if they were proposing a culvert to be put in, and he said, not that I know of. That wasn't true. In fact, the city was planning a 400-foot culvert. After doing some digging, I found out that the city contacted the DNR in Madison last year, asking that the ditch, again, private property, being deemed an artificial wetland, which the DNR did without any visual viewing of the ditch, and it was done with aerial views and maps only. The letter was dated January 3rd, 2019. Long before the ditch was dredged. Again, no one contacted me. Therefore, we did not have a chance to appeal within the 30 days. None of us did. And we're all adjacent to the ditch. I emailed Amanda Minks, DNR wetlands specialist, on May the 14th, asking that someone from the DNR, Madison, come and look at this ditch. Her email reply was, the wetlands surrounding the ditch met the definition of the artificial wetland exemption and not the wetland on the other side of the road. How can this be determined if she only went off of maps and aerials? This culvert will only cause more wetland and our property value will then be at risk. My question is, what is the real reason for the culvert? It will make our flooding worse and destroy frogs and other wildlife. Who benefits from city money used for their private lake access? And why are we being asked to pay for it? This is wrong, and we are extremely angry about this threat to our property values and city's lack of transparency. The city has handled this very badly. And we want the culvert project and its city expense stopped. It poses a risk to us and cannot be maintained. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other citizens' comments? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Emily Keek. My husband and I live at 1626 West Shore Drive. First, I'd like to thank you all for your service to our community and to have the opportunity to be heard on the record today. My husband and I have several concerns that we would like to bring to you as our representatives. First, we're concerned with the plan to install the 400-foot drainage pipe into the ditch to the north of Bob and Carol Beach's home. We are concerned that the purpose of the dredging of this wetland and now the proposed pipe installation is to address the issue of stormwater runoff, which has been pooling in our properties since the West Shore Drive street was repaved with the pitch toward our homes rather than toward the wetland. We are concerned that as an impacted property, we have not received any communication from the city regarding any of the plans which have been established to date. We are concerned that conversations with various city officials have not resulted in transparency related to the engineering supporting this plan. I find it difficult to believe that installation of a closed system will decrease flooding from the stormwater runoff. We're concerned that there has not been transparency with regard to the plan for maintaining the pipe and ensuring that it does not become plugged. If this does occur, the plugging of the pipe, the wetland will certainly flood. This will result in additional flooding in our property. We're concerned that the taxpayers of Delafield will have to suffer the financial burden of deals being made behind closed doors, drainage pipe installation on private property, and potentially another civil engineering mishap, the first being the incorrectly pitched road. We're concerned that the wetland has been deemed artificial despite the fact that it was established well before 1991, naturally, might I add, and that this wetland exemption from the DNR was requested without any communication to the adjacent properties. We are disappointed with the disregard for our lake's ecosystem and wildlife. Installing a pipe and filling the ditch will certainly change the topography of the wetland and impact our wildlife. We're not able to do much about that unfortunate change to the wetland at this juncture, but we plan to pursue that outside of this room. We are, however, putting the city of Delafield on notice that if this is not addressed, we will hold the city responsible for change in our ability to use our property and the decreased property value resulting from the poor civil engineering. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other citizens' comments? Any other citizens? Come on up, Jim.
James Beebe, 1342 Milwaukee Street. Just finished mowing my front lawn today, and traffic on Milwaukee Street, as usual, is moving along at a really good clip. We haven't seemed to have found any way to slow these people down, so I'm suggesting that in the proposed repaving of Milwaukee Street, that consideration be given to the installation of speed bumps between Fireman's Park and the intersection of Main and Milwaukee. I don't know what other way to slow this traffic down. People are moving along. The majority of, well, not the majority, but probably 40% of them in excess of the speed limit. Probably another 15% well in excess of the speed limit of 35 to 40 miles an hour. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time.
Any other citizens' comments? Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. We'll go on to the consent agenda, item number 2. Is there a question or motion on the consent agenda?
Also move.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to 3A licenses.
No report on licenses. thanks.
Okay, got it. 3B, Planning Commission, Mr. Eicher.
Okay, we haven't had a meeting since our last meeting, but there's a couple items here that have been referred to the council from much prior meetings of the Planning Commission, all of them dealing with the Chick-fil-A development and associated buildings. The first one is discussion and action on the conditional use permit, where I'm sure you recall, I'm sure I reported on it. And that is, we approved the development based on a minor difference in the amount of impervious area that was left over to them while the individual parcel met all the requirements. The agreement with the entire development south of Gulf Road there fell a small amount short, and we excluded that from, we modified the general development agreement anyway. It was unanimous to send this up to us, and I will make a motion to amend the conditional use permit for the Del Soda Chick-fil-A and multi-tenant retail development on 2980 Gulf Court to accommodate this request.
Second.
You guys are good.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And the next one is, again, this was prior even to the referendum, so this has to do with the action on the specific implementation plan that was approved for the same development. And there was a lot of good discussion about, and over the months leading up to this, about pedestrian access, tree impact, how that was going to be managed, how to protect the big oak tree there in the corner, and all that was fleshed out. And there was a good consensus that this was a good thing to do, and we voted to recommend it to you guys, and I will make that motion to do the same.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
And for item 3, since our city administrator has been charged with working out details on the developer's agreement, I'll defer the details to him.
Yeah, over the last week or two, I've been working very diligently with the attorneys on both sides, the city attorney and Delasoda's attorney. We have come to an agreeable developer's agreement that you see before you. This would allow Chick-fil-A to proceed with the construction of their project. One thing that I am recommending, one thing that we were unable to finalize in the developer's agreement, is that you approve this developer's agreement contingent upon resolution of one final issue, and we intend to resolve that in the Chick-fil-A business plan of operation. They already have a business plan of operation that didn't include this provision that I'm about to mention, so it would require an amendment to that, and we are recommending that you allow for that amendment to be approved administratively, and that amendment would be to require Chick-fil-A to be responsible for the costs of any extra police response or police services involved with excessive traffic volumes for their openings, and when their traffic volumes get really heavy, and for our police department to provide those traffic control services. And with that, I've penciled out a proposed motion that I believe Alderman Eicher may make.
I'm eager to do so. So I'll make a motion to approve the developer's agreement for the Del Soda Chick-fil-A and associated development at 2980 Gulf Court. Tax key DELC 0804-982001, contingent upon an amendment to the Chick-fil-A business plan of operation to be approved at staff level that requires Chick-fil-A to reimburse the city for services provided if the city police department determines their presence is necessary to perform traffic control due to extreme traffic volumes generated by Chick-fil-A.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
So So thank you. Aside from that, we do have a meeting a week from this Wednesday, and if you're interested in the agenda, it will be coming out shortly. But for anyone keeping score, the discussion or the public hearing on the Hendricks development is going to be in June. If you have questions about that, contact the city or your alderperson or people on the plan commission, but there's not going to be any action or discussion on specific to that until June. So with that, I'm done.
Great, thank you very much. 3C, Lake Welfare Committee, Mr. Maples.
No meeting, no report. Next meeting is May 28th.
I got copied on an email today, so I'll just mention it. The annual Lake Awareness Meeting will be on June 7th at the Seven Seas. During the day, I believe it runs from approximately 8:30 till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's kind of an all-day event tied in with the Clean Waters group, which is basically exactly the same thing that was done last year. So there'll be more information out. You can find it on the website later this week, and just want to mention that. Okay, 3D, Park and Rec Commission, Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting, no report.
3E, Public Works Committee, Mr. Dean.
No other report since we already approved the SIP under the Plan Commission. So we looked at it last Wednesday and then approved the Delafield SIP and the general plan, so no other report.
Sounds good. 3F, Delhart, Mr. Hiker.
Very briefly, we have a review of our audit for our financials from last year for Delhart, and also as the chair and our vice chair, we did a walkthrough with the engineers for the plant upgrade to change our sand filtration system to disc filtration. I might have mentioned this before, but that is moving along nicely, and we'll have lower phosphorus emissions from the plant about this time next year. That would be it.
Great, thank you. 3G, Police Commission, Mr. Saloga.
Yeah, there's been no meeting from our last session. We have a meeting this Wednesday, the 22nd.
Great, thank you much. 3H, Library Board, Ms. Valdi.
There was a meeting on the 14th, and there are a few things to highlight, mostly looking at summer. The summer reading program with the library, which is always very popular, starts June 10th. Fun things for adults. There's a senior walking club. There's an astrology event for, it's called A Map of Who You Are, which sounds like a lot of fun. A pop-up library every Wednesday. Locations alternate between the Hawks Inn lawn and Cushing Memorial Park. For kids, like I said, summer reading program, but also summer reading ice cream kickoff. Can I come? On June 14th, Space Outdoor STEM program, which is pretty cool, and then family fun story time. The teen stuff is the last stuff I'll mention. Makes me want to be a teenager again, as if I don't hang out with them enough. But there's an after-hours space camp, and in it it's from 6 to 7:30 on June 21st. But like to try out some of the things that people do when they go to space camp, and I had students back in the day go to space camp. It's really pretty amazing. They also have a Space Lander mission egg drop, which is a classic physics thing, on July 9th. And Candy Planet, design a beautiful Candy Planet to decorate your very own sweet universe, Wednesday, July 17th, 3:30. Great stuff.
Great, thank you very much. All right, 3I, Zoning Board of Appeals, Mr. Barron.
No meeting.
There we go. 3J, Promotion and Tourism Commission, Mr. Sloga.
Yes, we had a meeting last week. Of note, Tom presented the city's proposed budget, and very eloquently, to the commission. The commission discussed and did present a draft budget, which are outlined in the minutes if anyone's interested. One point of note that Tom made was the positive first quarter in the hotel industry is up 7.3% over last year. Typically the first quarter is our slowest growth, so that's anticipatory of a good second half. One note to that, the Holiday Inn did suffer setback and had down enrollment, possibly noted to new management. They also approved a new upgraded digital sign map for the city with all the current hotels, destination parks, et cetera on it. That work was signed and will be provided.
Excellent job. First report, thank you.
Thank you for allowing me.
All righty, 3K, Lake Country Fire Commission. Mayor, no report, no meeting, no report. 3L, Lake Country Fire Board, Mr. Grimmer.
No meeting, no report.
Mr. Grimmer, Tree Board.
No meeting, no report.
Deer Management Committee, Mr. Dean.
No report.
Great, okay. 4A, unfinished business, we have none. Mayor's report, mayor has no report. New business, 6A, discussion and possible action regarding ordinance number 751, an ordinance repealing and recreating section 7.10, parenthesis 4, and creating section 7.1, parenthesis 5 of the municipal code of the city of Delafield, Waukesha County, Wisconsin, related to exempting the Bridges Library System delivery truck from special and seasonal weight limits. Mr. Heffner.
Actually, Director Ramirez is here.
She's hiding behind the pole.
Excellent report, Jackie. Nice to see you all again. As you undoubtedly know, earlier this year in March, the city changes the vehicular weight limits on some of the streets due to the changing weather. Apparently this hasn't been done, at least in the last 3 years as I understand it, because I've been here 3 years and this has never been an issue, which is why I was unaware of it, but it never came up till now. When they did this, they forbid the library delivery truck from coming to the library as it was over the weight limit just in this street back here. And as they said, they don't know that it was overweight, but that it could be overweight. In fact, the delivery truck was pulled over by state police and given a warning just for looking overweight, when in actuality it is within the limits most of the time. We do have 1 day a week where it does hit the limits. But without the delivery truck, numerous functions of the library would basically cease to exist. No holds for other libraries would go out, nor would other people here get their holds to pick up. I gave you some numbers there, both on the specifics of the truck and also of our numbers. So for March, for example, we had 6,600 items just for holds. Items returned to us that belong to other libraries would not get sent back to their destination, nor would our materials get sent back to us. When I expressed to city administration that I was frustrated with this and what we could do to get a workaround, I was told it does not count as a pre-approved exemption because it is not a city vehicle, but a rather county one. But it is conducting city business, so I am asking for this exemption going forward so I don't have to do this every year and come to deal with this. I was told by the delivery company that they cannot use out front as an alternate because that, even though that Highway C has the higher limits, it would disrupt the busy street traffic on Highway C. He does have to load and unload the truck, and that takes a fair amount of time. So I'd ask you to consider this and making it a permanent exemption.
And if you concurred with that, we've got proposed ordinance number 751 prepared in your packet, which would provide for such exemption.
I would move to approve the proposed ordinance exemption. It's kind of mind-blowing to think that we would build a library and access to it, and 99% of the time it's not an issue at all. So it's just this, on a rare occasion, the vehicle might meet or be close to exceeding the weight limit, but the vast majority of the time it does not. And without this, it can't function.
Correct.
And it just, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Second.
I have a question. Are there any other municipalities that have run into this? Anybody else in the library system? Because that'd be hard to believe they haven't.
I haven't heard anything. I pulled, from what I understand from my counterpart in Oconomowoc, they simply turned the other way. and they haven't enforced it as of yet. I haven't heard anything else from any other directors.
That's likely what's happened in the past 3 years, when you haven't heard that it, 'cause
Right.
those are seasonal limits, I think, that get applied. It actually delayed the construction of my house by 6 weeks.
Yes, I've heard from other people that moving was quite a challenge, so.
And actually, in this case, Stephanie says it was the state police that pulled the truck over.
Right, it was not our local.
And they didn't even pull them over coming to City Hall. They pulled them up on over on Neshota Road heading to, I didn't know this, but they also serviced the Neshota House Seminary Library.
Yes.
And they were
So-
heading there.
Yeah.
Are we exempting them from those roads as well?
Yeah, this is exempting them from all, from weight limits on all city roads.
So do we know what the max weight limit is that they're, to be able to, do we have, is it in
Yeah,
there? Okay.
Stephanie indicates that at their heaviest, they run 6.69 tons, which is just barely over our
Okay.
6-ton limit.
Is that over the seasonal limit all the time, or no?
So most of our roads that we post seasonally, we post 6 tons maximum weight.
All right.
There's a few of the major roads, we post 12 tons, but most of them are 6 tons.
But I agree, we had a similar issue with the trucking route to the industrial park up on south of Kurt's Steakhouse, where, to your point, Jackie, when you design a use, when you permit a use, you've got to think about these ancillary
Right,
issues.
right.
And just so everyone knows, as we rebuild our roads, sometimes these are things we take into account to upgrade them. Because some of the older roads, and Neshota House, I think about that, probably laid over just dirt. I mean, they're just upgraded lanes. So, you know, the weight limits are in place for a reason, to try and extend the lives of our roads when they're very vulnerable. But I know the fire trucks go over them and the snow plows.
Right.
But it's something we take into consideration, but I support this.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm sorry. Who's, wait,
Yes, I second your motion.
He's second. Yeah.
any abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to 6B, discussion and possible action regarding Resolution 2019-07, a resolution determining the necessity of taking pursuant to 32.07 Wisconsin statute for the acquisition of certain lands, as well as the permanent and temporary easement required by the public interest for the purpose of reconstructing an existing public right-of-way known as Gulf Road.
Also move.
I have a couple of questions pertaining to this.
Second.
Do you have a second? Thank you. Go ahead.
What added cost is this going to present to the project?
Well, let me start off by saying that we are still working with RPT for an amicable cooperative agreement on purchasing the necessary property. We need to go that route to make the project happen this year. If we have to go the eminent domain route, the project will not happen this year, it'll be next year, just with the amount of time involved with the process. I would take a guess that the process probably costs somewhere in the vicinity of $10,000 to $15,000. The city is responsible for getting an appraisal. If the property owner doesn't like the appraisal, they can choose their own appraiser. The city has to pay for that appraisal. There's legal costs involved, administrative costs involved. But the big thing involved is the amount of time and the delay and putting the project off and then having to somehow, assuming Chick-fil-A is constructed this year, come up with a temporary traffic control plan that holds us off until the roundabout is constructed. So with that being said, the purpose of this resolution is really just to kick off our backup plan, and working collaboratively with our RPT to come to an agreement is still the primary plan for acquiring the property.
Again, who's picking up the cost?
The city would pick up the costs and then would special assess those costs to the property owners on Gulf Road.
Okay, so the residents of Delafield will not be responsible
Correct.
for any of the cost?
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear, because
Yep,
the way
good
I
question.
read it, it seemed like the added cost were going to be over and above, and then that would fall on the taxpayers and not the people in that area.
Yeah, I mean, really, the amount of money that we're offering to RPT takes into account the avoidance of some of those costs, and we believe that if we go through eminent domain, we would probably have to pay RPT less than what we're offering them because of we're trying to avoid these costs. So I don't think it'll have a significant difference even in how much we special assess the property owners on Gulf Road. It's just really the time
But
that we
again,
lose.
None of this cost will be put on the taxpayers
Zero.
themselves.
That is
Zero
correct.
cost will be on the taxpayer.
And the reason why I say this is because the referendum said.
Right, it's
there
good to
wasn't any.
clarify it, yeah.
So I just want to make sure that, that that's what it is. That's the only questions I have.
Okay.
Is RPTs resistant based on the price? Do they feel they want more, or are they just against the project in general? What's your...
They're not against the project, they're actually in favor of the project. They are trying to get more money, and they are trying to get Chick-fil-A in Delasota to slightly change their plans on the private golf court for what they're planning on doing at the terminus of that court. Right now, they're planning on taking out a raised median and paving over it, and RPT's not fully on board with that plan, and so there's still discussions about that.
But that's a private road, and that's between the owners of the road. It doesn't have anything to do with the city of Delafield. So any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. All right, we'll move on to 6C. Discussion possible action regarding the addressing of properties on Oakwood Drive. I know that one's Mr. Hafner.
Yeah, this is an issue that the fire chief came to me and asked me to bring to your attention. They regularly, the fire department, have concerns over the addressing of several of our roads, with Oakwood Drive being one of them. We just have inconsistent addressing in several different formats along a segment of the road, actually 3 different formats that we use. The fire department's preference would be that we ask people to change addresses so that there's consistency. This is highly inconvenient and problematic for a lot of property owners, and I'm guessing the Common Council may likely not want to go in that direction. But at a minimum, what the fire chief is asking for is at least direction on which format should we use for addressing from this point going forward, as we have land splits, as we have new properties and things like that. And the format that we are recommending is the one with the W in front of the address number and then Oakwood Drive, as opposed to a number of properties out there have the number and then West Oakwood Drive, and we really don't have a road named West Oakwood Drive.
Yeah, I haven't has anybody reached out to the citizens involved with this, the residents involved?
Nobody has, and I suggested to Kevin that if the council even wanted to entertain the possibility of changing addresses, that would be probably the first step, would be to do some kind of a reach out and survey of the residents, but I'm pretty sure the results are going to be no one's going to be interested in having their address changed.
But the numbers aren't changing.
Correct, but I would still think with a format change that people are going to change their their return address labels,
driver's license.
Driver's license, their accounts with different credit cards and whatnot.
So was the fire chief saying that's what he really wants to see, or you said there's a suggested?
Oh no, he really wants to see us do quite an overhaul of addresses throughout the city, which I just
This will just be the first one. I mean,
Because I'll tell you one thing that's really easy for me when I get a call from someone in Delafield and they lead off with their address with W3, I say, you're in the town.
Right.
Right. So right now we do not have this format in the city. I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Well,
it's very
he's
convenient
not-
that we don't.
Well, we
We're
do
not
have
having
that
north
format.
and west numbers.
Right.
But he's talking about putting a
No, I-
letter in front of the number.
I get it, I
And
get it.
we do have properties on Oakwood Drive that have the W in front and because that's the first thing I said to Kevin is we don't have those addresses in the city. Those are town addresses. And he said, no, they're not. The difference is with the town, you'll have the north number
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
And we don't have any of those.
Yeah.
How much does the U.S. Postal Service have a say in the addresses? I thought that's their domain. Don't they determine addresses?
Actually, the city does assign addresses to properties.
So knowing many of the residents along here and the history, this wouldn't be as impactful as a lot of areas where, I mean, there's an individual that I believe has been there about 40 years. But aside from that, there's a lot that have turned over. But knowing that this might be the beginning, I'd like to come up with, maybe discuss how we would approach this citywide before we just piecemealed it. I mean, I'd like to know the scope of it, like what Kevin has in mind. I don't know if he's got a plan for all of it. Maybe that's more than he wanted to bite off at once. But I'd like to know what the whole scope is so we could address it citywide before we created kind of a different anomaly than what he's experiencing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the fire department has a lot of frustrations with our addressing and our road name system. And if you ask them what they would want only one road called Nagawicka, not a Nagawicka Road, Nagawicka Drive.
We have Mission Road, Mission Drive.
Avenue, not an Oakwood Drive and an Oakwood Road and things like that. Kevin said that one time they responded to the wrong side of the lake for a call on Oakwood.
Well, to Tim's point, I mean, the residents are best served if the fire department knows where they are. And-
Correct.
And another factor,
And so,
go ahead.
no,
I was going to say another factor in all this is things keep getting better and better with dispatch, with triangulation, the GPS coordinates and things like that. And so it's not perfect yet, but this is becoming less and less of an issue as the emergency services rely on GPS coordinates for responding as opposed to addresses.
Is there anywhere in the city that they feel is addressed appropriately? I mean, maybe some of the new neighborhoods, did we start a trend already, or is this something that the whole city literally has to be reviewed?
No, it's not the whole city. I mean, the same situation that exists on Oakwood Drive also exists on Main Street, where we've got some properties that are on West Main Street and others that are on Main Street with the W in front. They always point to Vedelson Road being completely backwards as far as addresses. Addresses are supposed to get higher as you go from east to west. Vedelson Road is backwards. So it's things like that.
Okay.
No one knows how these things ever happened in the first place. You just kind of scratch your head when you look at them.
There was a
but-
0 point somewhere there over on, is it Cushing Park Road? Is that 0?
Well, on this road, the 0 point is at that bend in the road on
That's where
Oakwood
Cushing
Drive.
Park Road extended would be. And then somewhere down near the freeway, it was probably Highway 30.
Right.
I-
So I can talk to Kevin to see what he can put together for kind of a master plan of what his thoughts are, as opposed to piecemeal, one street at a time and seeing what you want to do, because that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, I'm
to
not,
see the extent of it.
I'm not against it. I'd like to know, but I think we should contemplate what other kind of issues might result from readdressing. I trust the Postal Service. They drive slower than the fire department. But just as far as how logic, I'd like to know the scope of it, and like you said, a master plan would be helpful before we decided maybe we didn't go in the right direction from the first implementation.
Okay, let us do some more homework on this before we bring it back to you.
Anything, I'm in favor of anything short of those dumb blue address signs in somebody's front yard.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
How
Agreed.
unsightly monster those things are.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you as well. All right, then we'll go on to 6D, discussion and possible action regarding tree protection of the 2 champion oak trees on Milwaukee Street project as requested by Alderman Valdy. Now, is this yours or Tom's?
It's me.
Okay.
But Tom and I have spoken about this. This is really, if you are really wonky, you can look at page 95 in the e-packet I submitted just for public perusal, some of the things to avoid tree damage during construction. A couple of the things that are the biggest concern regard to the two oaks. They're so close, and obviously they've been thriving, relatively speaking, where they are. They're older than our country. But my concern would be with things like any damage to the root system. The soil compaction is a big one, and smothering the roots by adding soil. It's some of the things that we don't really understand. We're not all arborists, I'm not one, but I know enough to know that it's the fine little hairs of the roots that actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for the tree, no pun intended, that will do the absorption of minerals and water and service the tree. And when we compact them, we impair their ability to work. I know that, that there is a construction fence. The owner of one of the trees is here. I just want to make it, like abundantly clear when the work is being done anywhere near them that we make sure that they're being tended, because they won't fall over and die in seconds, but over the course of a handful of years, they'll be dead. And we don't want to do that. So I don't know if you wanted to add anything, because I know we've spoken about this, Tom, many times.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add is that we had planned on putting up like an orange safety fence around at the drip line of both trees with some kind of signage on it saying no construction activity allowed within here, no stockpiling, no equipment parking, no digging, nothing like that. We already had our pre-construction conference, and that message was communicated to the contractors. They understand that. And I did put together a little map in here about what we intend to do as far as the fencing for the two trees.
Okay.
So the road doesn't usually involve silt fencing, does it?
Well, sure. If we're doing drainage improvements like we are in this project.
It's just because there may be the case where silt fencing doesn't help a tree. I mean, it normally helps a project, but that would be another thing to watch, I think. And I don't think there'll be a silt fence in this location, but the way those are cut into the...
Right, no, we would definitely, if silt
I mean,
fencing
that
is
would be a
required in this area,
construction-
we would go a little bit further upstream or downstream rather than to be right in the tree root zone.
So the root zone is what you're going to protect.
Yeah, and we go all the way out to the drip line is what we do of the tree.
That sounds good. Okay.
So is there action required here, or this is?
I don't think so. That's
putting
why the
everyone
word
on
was
notice?
possible. I just wanted to make sure it was sort of on, for the public to know that, we're going the extra mile to protect these
But-
trees.
And it's not the exclusion of any special care to any other tree.
Well,
It's not saying, well, stockpile over by this guy's tree.
yeah. No, but
It's like we're-
there are
we're-
some specimens that,
We want to be super sensitive to
yeah.
the fact that this project was modified accordingly to just deal
Well,
with the
because of the
canopy and really.
modifications really moved everything away from these
Yeah,
trees.
so the whole intent is that we want
Yeah.
to protect,
Right,
what we see now is what we want to see when the
Right.
project's done.
exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Thank
So as
you.
long as, I'm certain that would have been communicated to the contractors that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
there's no tree you can decide to kill if you have it in you, that you want to get rid of one, right? So,
Alrighty, all set. Okay, we'll move on to 6E, discussion and possible action regarding a fee waiver for the Delafield Arts Foundation stage at Liberty Park Beer Garden at 5K run of $130 for the park and $50 for the event packet.
I can take this one. The Delafield Arts Foundation is a 501c3. We're looking to raise money for a stage at Liberty Park. And we have an event. We've had beer gardens last summer. This summer we'll be at the Spring Art Walk, and we will also have a beer garden on July 20th and 5K run walk. And so we're looking for a waiver. The Arts Foundation is looking for a waiver of the fees associated with those permits. So I'll make a motion to waive the fee associated with the Delafield Arts Foundation stage at Liberty Park, 5K fun run and beer garden in the amounts of $130 for the park and $50 for the event packet.
Second.
And I'll say I'm in favor of, because it's specific to, we've got lots of charitable organizations that look to use the facilities, but because it's specific to something in the city and for the city and long-term project that benefits the city, I'm in favor.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, passes. Item number 7A, Administrator's Report.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that this week is National Public Works Week. Our foremen and our laborers do yeoman's work. I plan on buying them lunch this week, and if you happen to see any of the guys out and about, give them a kudos.
We will and we should. They do great stuff.
That's it.
Sounds good. 7B, Clerk.
Discussion and action on the voucher list that's being passed around.
I move to approve the voucher list.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, passes. Refer you to correspondence. And
Council
any
report?
council requests for future agenda items?
I do have one. I'll just take a minute. I would like to discuss, in relationship to a couple of the things that were brought up at citizens' comments, a process that we create, adopting a policy that I'm calling a daylight policy for City Hall actions and decisions. I have a copy of this for you. In the last couple of weeks, I've been made aware of actions taken by the city for which I can't find public record for discussion. I believe behind-the-scenes discussions and negotiations can and must take place at some point. There needs to be a policy of inclusion. At some point, folks should know ahead of time of what is being considered and why, as well as when. I understand that we have, budgets and they're generalized and we have to pay for everything from road construction to paper clips, and citizens do not need to be included on a decision to purchase more paper clips. Projects that materialize, like some of the ones mentioned in citizens' comments involving a 400-foot culvert and a wetland exemption, must involve some form of open processing. It's hard to appeal something when you are unaware of it and then you miss the deadline for the appeal. We can discuss this further. I think it will enhance our processes. We have a lot of really good ones in the city. And just a practice of when should this be enforced and when should we put it on the public record a little more mindfully. So that's what I'd like to discuss in a little more detail.
Sounds good. All right, seeing no further business, we are adjourned.